This month's speaker is an ERA member and very accomplished traveler, Andrew Ludasi. Andrew is a retired freight planning engineer from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. His top passion, of course, is being a rail fan, but is also a devout follower of classical music. And what we're going to see tonight is Andrew's travels to Europe, to Australia, Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney, museum in Tasmania, as well as some more recent photographs from a trip west back in September of last year, as far as Mason City, Iowa. So Andrew's been a rail fan, at least self-reporting, I think, since the age of 3. I think many of us could sympathize with that, and frequently asking his parents to see the trains. So, and has been a serious photographer of the rail scene since the age of 16. So with that, Andrew, I am going to turn it over to you to start your presentation, and I would say take it away.
All right, I'm going to start tonight with something I added. Whoops, hold on. I'm dedicating this show to my father, who died just over a month ago at age 94 in a nursing home in Toronto. He had had quite serious dementia for a while. He was never an organized rail fan, but he always loved trains. We went to see trains together. We didn't travel that much on trains. He did. He, I mean, born in Europe, he traveled quite a bit by train, and he traveled quite a bit by train here in North America when he was allowed to do so for business, which he did when he could. This is a blurb they put up about him at the nursing home. It's interesting in terms of the dementia that he mentions that he never had any pets. He completely forgot that we had a terrific cat for 18 years. So anyway, that's a picture of my parents at their wedding, 1953, and that's a much more recent picture of my father just a few years ago. So that's yours truly and my father. I must be about, I'm guessing, maybe 3. Anyway, that's a picture of them, my mother and my father, in Paris in 1966. And then these are pictures that my father took in, I believe they're taken in 1956 in Budapest. For people who've been to Budapest, I know a number of the rail fans have been to Eastern Europe. This is what was at that time called Moskva tér, and now it's Székálmán tér again. This is very close to where they lived. And there's almost no pictures in our family from, but he had some slides taken in poor quality. These are scanned, and this is they're not that great pictures, and they're faded now, but this is trams from 1956 in Hungary. These are, as I said, very close to where they used to live on this square, which I believe maybe Jack or other people have presented more up-to-date pictures of here. That's it. There's just 3 pictures. And then he went to Milan on business, and I asked him to take some pictures for me. So I found this map of Milan, which kind of explains why. If anybody remembers, this is 1974, I believe, more or less the map. If you look here, these lines are not connected. The trams used to go this way. This is where the Duomo is, and it used to cut through, and this is what it looks like now. I see it no longer goes through there, and it's connected. So I had him take pictures right next to the Duomo. These are scanned slides from, I have to check the year. I think it was 1970 something, late 70s. And these were already the brand new MUs. They're kind of lopsided. And there's a classic Peter Witt. And as I say, unfortunately, the trams no longer run next to the cathedral like this. So these are pictures that my father took. And I don't have a slide scanner, so these were scanned a while ago when I had access to one. I think this is the last one. This is at the Piazza Cavour, I believe, coming through on line 12. So let me then switch to my show, starting with My trip in 2012 to Melbourne, Australia. So here we go. Now, Melbourne, for most traction fans will know, is actually the world's largest tram system. It is now, I looked something up and it turns out that it is possible that now, trying to think which city has just exceeded it. Karlsruhe in Germany, if you count their tram trains, now has more mileage of trams than Melbourne does. But Melbourne's system is almost all classic street running. This track map is taken from the 70s. These two lines, which are not shown here as trams, this line, can people see my my mouse? I think they can. And then this line that comes this way have been converted, and when I was there, they're converted to tram lines and no longer link into the commuter rail system, but go this way onto the tram system. So here we are. This is the first place that I started to take pictures. This is the main commuter line going into the station over here, Flinders Street. And these maps are taken from OpenStreetMap, which have very detailed track maps, as you can see. So here are the photographs. This is this huge complex of tracks with slip switches, and then the trains start coming. These are the multiple unit electric commuter trains that are typical of Melbourne. And here is I believe that is a Class Z type tram. That's the tallest building in Melbourne, and it's an 80-story condo building, maybe the tallest building in all of the Southern Hemisphere. And then they have some diesel service as well. This looks like a long distance train that I happened to catch coming in from that overhead bridge. And then this is the track map so this is the line that the track map showed that goes down to Beacon Cove, and the other one is now converted to light rail. What has changed since I was there is this. I don't have a track map from 2012. This is new. The track, you can see it, they had left it in, and it used to go down Domain Road because my hotel was right there. So the tram line 8 used to come along Durham Road, go down this street, and then go out Toorak Road. So that my photographs show that section of the line. This is a neat map of Melbourne showing in the London style all the light rail and the trams. The loop here is, this is a tram, and then the sort of light gray lines are all the commuter rail services that operate around Melbourne. So these are the two lines that I've talked about, green that comes down to St. Kilda. This is at Flinders Street. This is they call it Metro, their overhead wire electric commuter service. This is a different type of train. I apologize to people who want me to describe each equipment. I'm not an expert on looking up which type of train these are. This is in front of Flinders Street Station. This is a typical Class Z, I believe, tram. And here's another one going in the opposite direction. So this is the track map of downtown. What has changed is these two lines now connect onto this line, no longer go into Flinders Street. This is now a pedestrian bridge. And there's actually been additional trackage added because there's a loop now. Trams go this way as well. They make a loop around downtown. This is an interesting picture. This is Flinders Street. If I go back one to show the map, this is the end of this line, Elizabeth Street, which has this dead end, double end, and it is actually not connected to the tracks on Flinders Street. So what you have is the tram, and I can zoom in so you can see it. Of course, it's in the shadow because of the time of day. This is in front of Town Hall, which is their concert hall on, I have to check my notes here. Oh, here we go, it's on Swanston Street. Yes, in front of Town Hall, just near Collins. And here's another one. This one has wrapping around it. The next tram we have, I had a lot of rain, unfortunately, when I was in Melbourne for 5 or 6 days, and some of the days got kind of washed out. This is one of their, trying to think if this is the Citatus or the other one. They have two kinds of low floor cars. They have Citatus and what's the Alstom car called? I'm trying to remember. This is in the rain at Collins Street, just near the same location, but at the cross street. Now notice they do not have grand unions. The trams just tend to cross each other. This is at the end of that recently converted at the time, the end of the line out by the beach at Beacon Cove. There we go, Beacon Cove. Here it is, very near where it connects to the north-south line, and it these are the, again, let me just check my notes, which type of car. Most of the people on will know what type of car this is. I'm trying to remember what Melbourne has. They have Citatus and Combinos, I believe.
Yeah, we had a comment in the chat that the Citatus cars are Alstom product, and the Combinos are a Siemens.
And these are the Siemens. This is a Combino from Siemens. This one out at St. Kilda. I don't know if this gentleman right here is on the show tonight. He's a friend of mine who lives in Melbourne. John, he often he's on a number of these Zoom meetings. Of course, there's a huge time difference. He also Rocky Mountain Railroad Club, CERA, and so forth. He's the one we took a whole day to ride the trams in. This is a classic W car, which a lot of people will know because we have them running in San Francisco. There's one in Savannah. A number of them have been brought over as tourist trams, although I think most of them operate with trolley poles, not pantographs in North America. This is the Malvern Depot, which we went by. Here it is. Very classic, sort of very English building. There's a tram coming out of Malvern Depot, going into service. This one is on the number 70 at Swan Street, and I believe it says in my notes, and Church Street intersection. Yeah, this is 78 on Chapel at Church. A lot of these tram lines go through a lot of commercial areas. Very typical. This one is one of the few lines that was still operating W cars on a regular basis. This is getting late in the day, so it's a little out of focus. Here we are back at Flinders Street stop on Swanton Street, and there's that tall building you can see from practically everywhere. So here's a blow up of that map that still shows where they cut off Domain Road, which used to connect to St. Kilda Road, and then would come down Park Street and turn to Toorak Road. They've cut the line through here now. It's interesting, this block right there, which is all gray, this must be under redevelopment because that's where my hotel was, and I believe it's been demolished. Over here is South Yarra. This is a commuter rail line stop, and I have some photographs coming up of the trains going through that station, and I'll be there. This is on Toorak Road, number 8, again a Combino car. Here we are with traffic nicely piled up behind it, and this is one of the looking at my notes, this is it could be an A class. It's either an A or a Z, I don't remember which ones. These are the older high floor cars. Here we are again on line 8 on Toorak Road. Yeah, this is near South Yarra. This is right near the train station. Oh, this is the bridge over the train tracks. Again, a very English style building in the background. And then here we are on the City Circle loop right near the Flinders Street station. And these trams are run by the old W class for tourist purposes. They actually run free around the center of the city. As you can see, it's pretty rainy on that day. This was on a better day where the sun came out. This is on Nicholson Street near the Victoria Parliament on the City Circle route. And then that's the Contemporary Art Museum right near Flinders Street in the background. And this is Flinders Street Station. And this is Southern Cross. This is their main railroad station for intercity services, although there aren't that many intercity services left in Australia. They have one train overnight that still goes to Sydney, I believe. Now, Victoria's railroads are broad gauge, whereas New South Wales, where Sydney is, their standard gauge. So there is a standard gauge line that runs through from Sydney to Melbourne, where you will have 3 rails, as you can see the different tracks here at the station to accommodate the train that comes from New South Wales. So I went out by boat on the Yarra River, out into the harbor and out here to Williamstown. And this is the service that goes out to Williamstown, which the rail service goes all the way around town and then into this. This is a double-decker loop tunnel under downtown with a very complicated service that actually reverses the trains will reverse direction at certain times of day, so that each track is actually bi-directional in the tunnel. This is just north. This is at North Melbourne, coming out of the tunnel in the loop, the yard in the background. And then here we are in Williamstown. The pictures I took, I think, are closer to the Williamstown Beach station. This is where the boat landed. This is on the way to Williamstown, going right by the container harbor. And here we are, very green, out in at Williamstown Beach. Again, the same type. Oops, the same type of cars coming along on this electrified railroad, and of course, left-hand running, because everything is left-hand in Australia. This is a trip we took out on our way to Bendigo. John stopped. This is, for those of us who also like diesels, it is a GM type diesel, but they're very common in Australia to have made them as double-ended. That picture was taken just off of Adelaide Street. You can't really see it on this map. It's actually in a parking lot somewhere around here. And then we went out and stopped in the South Dynon Rail Yard to get some pictures of them still in service. There's another double-ended. This one is a, I have it listed here, just let me look at my notes. Or, where did I put it? Give me a second to find my notes on this. Here we are. Yeah, the A-class were actually rebuilt in 1985. And that locomotive is stored as of April of 2013. They're built by a company called Clyde Engineering, which had the license from EMD. Then we have this one. Yeah, if you'll notice, the paint scheme is a little bit reminiscent of the Erie Railroad. Very similar noses. Then we have this has an EMD 645 diesel, so a newer one, not the latest model, 16-cylinder, 3,300 horsepower. So it's somewhat similar to an SD 40 or a 45 for North Americans. Then this is also a 645 engine equipped locomotive, but completely in sort of a cowl body. This is a see, Y157. It's now in Bendigo as a shop shunter, is where it's moved. Here's another one of these double-ended ones, and this is the last one. This looks very familiar to North Americans. It's Australia's equivalent to the E8 and the E9. And there's quite a number of these in museums in Australia as well. So let me move on from Melbourne. Oh, here's a farewell picture of what the skyline looks like at night. Really, really nice city, Melbourne. For anybody who wants to go to Australia, definitely worth the trip. Let me go to Bendigo, which was a day trip out of Melbourne. So here's the map. I don't know if you can see it. Bendigo restored, maybe they never abandoned, from here along High Street and then out this way, a tourist tram line. The next picture this is where the tram depot is, where we started. They have, according to their website, 45 trams, of which 15 are in operating condition as of right now when I looked at the website. This is a map there at the station, so you can see this is the line that's still in service, the one from the middle top and all the way down this way. The line that crosses no longer exists, but these are pictures taken when it was operating, and this is a map at the museum. There was a sort of a mini Grand Junction in the middle of town. This is at the beginning of the trip. This is 808 is ex-Melbourne car. And then later when it came back, this is the tour out on the main street. Here we are in different lighting when we got back to the depot. And this is out on the main street. You can see part of it's single track, part of it's double. There weren't very many people riding, as I remember, on that day. Here it is coming in on that single track towards the depot. There it is again, getting ready to go out. Now these are, a lot of these are the cars that are parked in the museum. I think this is number 7, which is also an ex-Melbourne car. Here it is, again, slightly different lighting. And that's what it looks like on the inside. Nicely rebuilt, maintained. And here we are at there's, as I say, a lot of cars inside the barn. A lot of them were not working. This is 2000, this is 10 years ago. Number 19 operated in Footscray and was built in 1917. Footscray is out towards Williamstown. 976 is also ex-Melbourne. Here's number 19. It's kind of like a California car, open at both ends in a closed center section. This one is, I don't remember the number on this one. Beautiful glass on this one. 26 is another ex-Melbourne car. There's John again. This is 610, which is a Melbourne Y-class tram. And I looked it up. There are only 4 of these ever built. So the museum has managed to keep one of them. There it is. And I believe there's an interior. Yes, there's an interior picture of it. Has some interesting, these windows, and still a wooden roof. Number 17 is a toast rack from 1913, and it was built for Bendigo. It is the last one in service of its type. You guys can go to the website of the Museum for Bendigo and find this. They have really detailed information on all of these. This is number 44, which is another one. This one came to Bendigo actually in 1951. It was in Sydney prior to that. Number 84, another Melbourne car all the way back from 1917. And there's a close-up of its. They look like maximum traction trucks to me. I'm not sure that's what it looks like. These are motors that they're rebuilding, and more of them. Oh, there's a Bernie. That's right. They have a Bernie number 28, which I looked up. I'm looking at my notes. Let's see where I wrote down. Oh, is it on the other side? Nope. I guess I didn't write down where the Bernie came from. There's another Bernie, which is number 15, which is 1924. Oh, this one's, see, they're still working on it with the wooden benches. This one is, they're asking for donations for the restoration. And here's another Bernie. I think this is this is a Bernie that was in Adelaide. Actually, this one. There's a picture of the downtown crossing when they used to have trams going on both lines. And this is back, you can tell from the type of cars, it's a picture from the 60s. And that's Farewell to Bendigo. That's right downtown on the crossing of the main street. Really nice old building. Next stop will be Adelaide. So let me go to, oh no, next stop was Tasmania. So I then flew to Tasmania, which is pretty much directly south of Melbourne. I flew into Launceston, and when I did a show, I think about 3 years ago, I showed pictures of the Tram Museum in Launceston and Hobart, so I'm not going to repeat those. My basic trip was to go from Launceston west towards Davenport, Burnie, down this west coast highway out here, which you can't see at this scale, to Strahan, and then back this way and down to Hobart, and then I flew out of Hobart. The next map, this is the Don River Railroad Museum over here, and they own this line that goes all the way, very scenic, down by the river out to Don Junction, where it actually does still connect to the operating railroad, which I didn't see any. It's all narrow gauge. Tasmania is all narrow gauge. So this is where you enter the museum. Lots of old equipment, actually, a lot of it in nicely restored condition. This rail car is the one that was in operation and went all the way down along the river and back. 260 that they have, a steam engine, road and rail. This is, as you can see, this must have been fairly recent with the GM New Look bus passing under the rail line. Builders plates they've preserved. And here's the rail car that they use for operation. As you can see, it was built, they don't put the year on it. Anyway, it's a little light rail car. Here it is. And this is the driver's area. And then we went off to the junction at Don Junction where it interconnects with the actual operating railroad. So it was built by Waddington. And here we are, the interior. And this is the line where on the left is the actual operating railroad as opposed to the museum trackage. And this is where it connects at the end. The sun came out, so you can see the interior a little better. These are the controls. Neutral, gear shift, I believe. I'm guessing this is not electric, but some sort of hydraulic transmission. And this is on the way back along the, there we are along the river and the flats, and coming back into the museum. And they have all sorts of, there's no electric at this museum, it's steam and diesel. An old rail car, which you can see, there it is. There's the car again. There's the And this one, there was no label on this. You can see it's slightly sagging. Has the outside, like a toast rack on the outside. Oh, they had some very good steam engines inside the museum. This is a Pacific. They're rebuilding some of them, restoring them. This one's extremely English style. And this is a motor that goes into one of the power bogies. There it is. Yeah, for the rail car. So it's a spare. If anybody can read that. Some kind of a little maintenance of way car. Oh, and then this looks like I can't remember what this was. It looks very much like an Alco of some sort from the trucks. Crane. And then here we are in the town of Strawn, where I stayed overnight. And I don't know if you can see it, this gray line right here is a rail line, which is partly rack. It's completely restored. It was abandoned in 1961 and much later rebuilt completely. It's kind of like the Georgetown Loop in Colorado. In other words, it's a rail line that is made to look like the rail line that was there. So this is the map at Queenston, and I will have some videos of it too. There was not operating on the day I was there because they had too few people to actually run a train. But here it is, the Armstrong turntable, where they turn the steam engine around. And there it is. Mount Lyell, and then being put back into the barn. This was a train they were just shuttling around the yard. And they do have some diesels as well. So that's the end of the slides. So now I'm going to switch to some videos. They're very short videos of in Tasmania. So these were taken in low resolution. I did not have a high resolution. And the next, I need to move this thing out of the way there. Hold on, I'm trying to get to the next video. Sorry, this one.
Just oriented your Zoom bar in the middle of the video.
I just moved it out.
You may want to maximize it. And just as a reminder, we can't hear you talk when the video is playing.
Right. Was the Zoom bar out of the way?
It is, yeah, but your videos are not maximized. They're only about.
No, just these, because these are old videos and they were taken at lower resolution.
All right, thank you.
They're not. Okay, so that I think is it for videos. Yeah, that's it for videos for Tasmania. I didn't have very many. Next, we'll go to Adelaide. Adelaide is there. Before I got to Adelaide, I'd gone to a place called Kangaroo Island, which is not a railroad place. It's an interesting place for. In Australia, they have unfortunately been overrun with introduced species like rabbits and so forth. Kangaroo Island is still pristine, so it's very interesting to visit. very expensive to get there by ferry. It's outrageously expensive to make the crossing. Anyway, on the way back to Adelaide, I stopped in Victoria Harbour, and here we are. You see this little track coming off Granite Island, and that's what they have. They have a horse tram, a tourist horse tram that goes over to that island. It was quite cold. As you can see, people are fairly bundled up. So there it is, and then it comes into town. So they have a tourist horse tram. Now we're getting to Adelaide, but before we get to Adelaide, I made a stop at the Mount Barker right here in the lower corner. There's a rail museum. Here it is, Mount Barker, the Steam Range Museum. And what do they have? RDCs. This is, again, it's broad gauge. South Australia was mostly broad gauge. And what looks like a copy of a Pennsylvania T1 steam engine. Some passenger equipment. A lot of, typical museums where they crowd things together under, and they have some nicely restored steam engines. I believe this one actually operates because there's a picture of it coming up on some sort of a fan trip, which they had. And this is another beautiful steam engine. That's the gentleman who let me in, and because it wasn't open to the public, let me in and take pictures in their shops. And built in 1936. And here it is out on a tourist run. I'm not sure where, but both of these steam engines do operate on fan trips. So here we are in Adelaide. Adelaide has one remaining streetcar tram line that is known as the Glenelg Tramway. It used to operate these really neat trams that are no longer in service, and I was told they don't even take them out because their braking doesn't meet current requirements. So they have Citatis and Combino cars as well. And here they are. I mean, is it Citatis or is it, I'm trying to remember which ones they are. Look at my notes. They have, oh, it's Flexity, sorry, it's Flexity and Citatis is what they have. And here's that's the Citatis car. The previous one was the Flexity. A lot of them are wrapped, unfortunately. This is going out towards Glenelg. There's downtown Adelaide, beautiful old building. This is out at Glenelg at the other end. So I did ride the tram line. These are different pictures in Glenelg on at the end of the line. This is back in Adelaide, around that square. And then actually between the two, it's all private right of way. It's only partly street running or like this on the side of the road in downtown Adelaide and out on Glenelg. Here's two cars, the Citatis and the Flexity, passing each other. Of course, this one's going away from, the one on the left is the one going away from the camera. And here's the Citatis car. Here it is on a section in the center of the road, private right of way, just before it leaves the downtown section. And here it is. This is where it goes out onto the private right of way at the south end of downtown. And this is the way out. And here we are in Glenelg again, Moseley Square. Now they've changed the routing slightly since I was there. They've added a short crosstown line in downtown, and it no longer, so they actually operate two separate services. There was only one service operating at the time in 2012. And here we are at the Glenelg end. That's just that's it for Adelaide. So then we're going to jump to Sydney. Quite a few pictures of Sydney. Everyone will recognize that. That's the famous Sydney Harbour Bridge. And these are the City Rail, which is their electrified commuter rail. Now, it's interesting that both Melbourne and Sydney, which are very large cities, 4 or 5 million people, have electrified commuter rail, but no subway type system. Sydney is now building one. Melbourne relies on its commuter rail tunnel under downtown to kind of be sort of like a metro system. This is no longer there in Sydney. This was a monorail that went out of service a few years ago. And right below it, you can actually see the first of their light rail lines had just opened, I think, a few years before I was there. So here's the monorail, and as I said, that's been torn down. Here's the light rail line. Sydney has expanded their light rail since I was there quite a bit. And it comes into, yeah, Central Station was the, there's a loop. This is Central Station. I have these interesting double-decker stainless steel cars on their, again, on their suburban service. Here we are at Central. Central Station's a dead end, although some tracks go underground and run through. Here we are. This is the underground section, St. James Station. Kind of even look at the kind of looks like a London Underground with the circle and the train. This is the stairs going underground. So it looks like a subway system, but it's the electrified commuter rail system that runs in a tunnel under Sydney, and then that actually goes out onto the bridge. It has different lines. It goes, one line actually stays mostly underground to go to Bondi Beach, or very near the Bondi Station. And unfortunately, there is sometimes graffiti on trains down there. This is the upper level, the new of that station. So this is Central Station. These are, as I said, the dead end tracks, the through underground tracks. The only thing that existed is this loop of the light rail when I was there. As you can see, the light rail now has a track into Center City, one that goes past the station and out this way. None of that existed in 2012. This is the loop that did exist as it comes in front of Central Station and makes a stop, and people can transfer between the light rail and the heavy rail. And this bird didn't seem to mind walking on the tracks. It's a stork. It was quite tame. And when I was there, they had they called the Great Train Expo. So they brought back, they have preserved the Southern Aurora, which was a streamlined Sydney to Melbourne overnight train, looking very much like an American Bud-built type, something like the Empire State Express. And here it is being shunted in, and there's the whole train, which has been preserved. This looks like an Alco PA, truncated, shorter nose, more like an FA type nose. There's the shunter, and this is the dormitory baggage car, and then you have a sleeping car, and then there's a lounge car. It has a dining. It has a lounge car, sleeping car, restaurant car, diner, just like we would have here. There's the diner with the kitchen. This was another old car that was just attached, and a steam engine was on the other end. I do have some videos of this, of the steam operating. A roomette. So Australia basically followed American practice when they built their trains in the 50s. And here it is. This is an all roomette car. The only interesting difference from the way we would build them is this sort of wavy corridor that goes between, so that the rooms are slightly wider. And see, very typical of the same arrangement that we've got here. Fold down wash basin, a lounge car, beautiful glass here, the partition at the bar. It's interesting that they preserved the entire train. I'm not sure what museum it's in, but they bring it out. This is one of the dining cars. They actually have two dining cars. The kitchen, stainless steel. And I guess they can still serve meals in here. There's the other dining car. And here they put up models for us to actually see this train There's cutaways, and there were diagrams as well, put up in the station. Lounge car, sleeping car, there it is, and you can see the diagrams. There's the sleeping car. See, with the roomettes, with the wavy corridor between the roomettes. So I guess they wanted to squeeze as much extra space as they could out of every. And this was an all-bedroom car. I think it's 11 bedrooms, like we would have had here. Very, very similar arrangements to, as I say, to North American practice. I mean, even the cutaway of this dining car looks like something you would have seen on New York Central. These are some very old cars they brought out from their old collection. You know, elegant Pullman cars from an earlier era, steam engine, and they actually had some of that. They had these in operation. Kid really enjoying the steam, and there's the fire. They had the firebox open. You could see the let's see where they shoveled the coal, the pressure gauges, and beautiful, you know, lettering. And this is the steam engine. In a moment, I will show the videos of this actually moving. Again, unfortunately, they were in lower resolution videos because that's what I had in my camera at the time. Economy kind of looks like, I don't know, third class in Europe. Small windows. And this is a buffet car. And here's the steam engine again. With the modern signaling, there's a station with its clock tower and one of their classic older compartment. And here we are looking at the engineer, and everyone dressed in appropriate period costume. Oh, and of course, even while you're there, there's the electric modern equipment on adjacent tracks. I believe this is a train. I took a train to Canberra on a different day, and I believe this is the sort of equipment that we went on. And I flew back to Sydney because it's a fairly long trip. Me reflecting in the window. All right, so let me get to the videos of Sydney. Sorry, I need to move my Zoom bar out of the way. Paul, how is the video? Is it smooth?
Yeah, it's smooth.
Okay, good. I have two more of Sydney. So the steam engine's running. Sydney. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, all right, so we're finished with Australia. So I'm going to jump to something extra that I showed at the test show, which is not on the program. I was in Perugia, Italy. Perugia is the capital city of Umbria, the province of Umbria. It's a typical Italian hill town. But what they've introduced in Perugia is a people mover, which it's called the mini metro, and it is the same people mover that is used at a car park at Frankfurt Airport, at Detroit Airport, in Cairo, at Miami out to Concourse, and also a fairly long line at Pisa Airport, which connects to Pisa Centrale, the railroad station. So it runs from here, from Pinetto, under the hill, Cupa, and then out this way to a big car park and some kind of a stadium. It's not very long. It's kind of unusual. It's cable hauled. As you can see, it's partly in tunnel. And here it is. These are these little cars that run, and I think they chose this type of equipment because of the extremely steep grades that because of the cable, they're able to pull it up and down hills. And the cars run every about 2 minutes. Here it is on the elevated section, where it actually goes over the railroad station, so you can transfer to the mainline railroad. And here's the bridge over it. I have some videos of that. Now, these videos were taken with a different camera at high res, so you can see the cable right here, and all these. This would not have been possible with conventional light rail. There it is, where it dips into the tunnel under the city. As you can see, the buildings. It's quite steep hill town, typical of Italy. And this is the terminal in the view you get from Pinetto out, and you can see the valley below. That's sort of looking toward Assisi is right nearby, by the way, next city. That's what Perugia is famous for, chocolate and chocolate cake, and the fountain. Unfortunately, I have been to Perugia many years earlier. Now they have the fountain surrounded by a fence, so you can't get close to it. It's a very famous fountain, beautifully carved from the Renaissance. But I guess they have to protect it from too many tourists. Oh, and there was an Alfa Romeo show on the main square, and people were bringing their older Alfas. This is a 70s, I think a 1750 or a 2000 Spider, and this one's from the 60s. But that's Perugia, but I'll show the videos of the mini metro. Now, these are full resolution. Let me get the bar out of the way. And somewhat typical of airport people mover type things, of course, it has platform doors. Comes out of the tunnel. before. Yeah, you can see at the end of this video how the system works at the end is a turntable. So it moves across and then gets reversed, which is kind of unusual. Anyway, sorry, that video is for later.
Yeah, Andrew, sorry to interrupt, but we did have your videos spawned a whole bunch of questions in the chat. So if it's okay, do you mind answering a handful of questions?
No
I'll just read
problem.
them to you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the questions was is there an operator in the cars, or are they automated?
No, it's completely automated.
And then the next question is, are the cars tied to the cable, or is there some type of automatic grip mechanism like?
No, I think the cable is continuous. It runs all the time, and as it pulls into the station, it detaches from the cable for the stop.
And then another question was, it seemed in the videos like when you were filming from inside the car that it was a fairly loud ride or environment, or was that just the camera?
I think it's the camera. I don't remember it being that loud. I think it just picks up a lot of the background noise.
And then one final question, does it ride on rubber tires?
I believe it does. You can see the track. It's kind of like a flat metallic track. I think it is rubber tired. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, if we go back to the pictures, I think you might be able to see the edge of the car. I don't remember. If we go back to these pictures, can you see the wheels? See these kind of flat, it's not a real rail. It's a flat track. I'm trying to think if you can actually see the car. It's kind of hard to get a picture of it on this. Maybe here we can zoom in and we can see if we can see the tires. It's got to be some kind of tire because you see it's not a rail. It's a flat guideway. There's no rail at all. Yeah.
Sure enough. Very, very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. It's kind of an unusual. It's electric, so I figured it fits our general topics. Now, I'm going to go. I was in Switzerland, so I'm going to do the Switzerland trip now. Actually, I have a few pictures of Sardinia, a little bit more of narrow gauge, non-electric, and I do have a video of it. I know Jack gave us a show a while back. He did quite a lot of travel. I didn't want to overlap with what he had shown the group about Sardinia, about the light rail systems. But Sardinia has a number of tourist narrow gauge railroads. They call them the Trenino Verde, which run, and I didn't get a chance to ride it, but I did get a chance to photograph one of the lines. Now this is just a picture to show how beautiful Sardinia is. Very, very rocky coast. The roads along the obviously are not along the edge of the coast here. They're inland, and you have these places where you can come out because it is, especially on the East Coast, very rocky like this. Beautiful coves. There are ways to get down to the beaches. This is at Arsacena, where I stayed here. If you can see my pointer, that's called an agriturismo, which was a farm that's been converted into like a B&B. And it's very near this line. This is the tourist line, which maybe sees 1 or 2 trains at most a day and only parts of the season. There's a station here, and I got some pictures from the bridge. And then I got some, here it is, the train coming in, pulled by this little small diesel. There was almost nobody on it. It was operating early in the morning. It doesn't run very fast. And then it ends up in Palau, this station. It actually goes down this track, has a switchback, and goes into Palau Marina. I got my pictures here at the main station. So here's the train coming back. And it's going through like the yard tracks. There's not much left of, this is totally tourist. It's no longer used as a as an actual road. See, there are a few, but not many passengers. It's pretty empty. That was about it. And I have a video of it. I think this, is there one more picture? Nope, that's it. There is a video, one single video, again at low resolution because it was 2015. Yeah, part of that background noise that you hear when you hear my, I think that's like the wind going by the microphone to the camera. It picks up a lot of background. So then I'm going to go to Switzerland, which I was in 2018, I believe. I went to ride, well, I went to Zurich. I just have to remind myself what year. That was also 20, actually that was 2015. That was the same year that I was in Sardinia. I actually rode quite a lot of trains in Switzerland. Where what I was doing was I wanted to ride the Gotthard. I'd never been on the Gotthard Railway, and as many of you probably know, the Gotthard Railway is now, it still exists. It's a secondary line because they built the base tunnel, the world's longest, 54 kilometers under the base of the mountain. So most of the through fast trains no longer go up on the classic Gotthard line. So I had a few days in Zurich first. Some opera, and obviously some museums and some tram photography. So this is again OpenStreetMap, which has this very good detailed track map all over. And this is your, if you do want to, if you travel, use OpenStreetMap. You can see right here, for example, where they even show you where the yard is for the trams. They show you where the tracks are, the switches, everything. My hotel was along this section of Badnerstrasse, I think about here. I had breakfast in a cafe here usually in the morning at this junction. So here we are, like New Orleans, green, beautifully, well, it's Switzerland, so everything is, you know, always very, very well maintained. The grass on the private right-of-way is obviously well mowed. This is these are their newer low-floor cars, and yeah, this is the line. This is where the two lines meet at that junction. This is on the other side of the river, line 3. This is near the art museum. This is the more classic high floor cars in Zurich. Some of these now have an inserted low floor section in the middle. This is one pulling a trailer coming downhill. This is taken actually out of the art museum in that area on the east side of the Limmat River. And then they were temporarily doing something around this point, and they had these pedestrian bridges so I could get a lot of good overhead shots. I don't think the pedestrian bridge is there anymore. This was just something to do with construction and the road being closed, and as a protection, they had pedestrians go across the road overhead. So here's the the older style car with a trailer, and the frequency of service in Zurich is very high. I think most of these lines, and there's multiple lines meeting at this point, run something like 10-minute or less service. So you have a lot of trams going by. This is one of the classic older high floor cars. Here's one of the low floor cars coming around the curve. On Route 11 meeting Route 9. There's a Route 9 going away from the camera. There's a Route 9 coming towards me. And then here, this is another place where there's a lot of trams, Paredeplatz. This is all pedestrianized. Bahnhofstrasse is the shopping and pedestrianized going. The train station is just to the north here, and you'll see the trams. Here, this is Bahnhofstrasse. And then we will get to, here we are, the main train station. And these are lines now, they used to be completely a dead end station. And now they have tunnels to run some trains through because they have such frequency of service that trying to reverse trains at a dead end station was no longer viable. So of course they built it, they spent the money, they built it, they built tunnels. You have 4 tracks here at this point in front of Bahnhofstrasse where all the lines meet, and it's quite a and even trolley buses, it's quite a complicated point here. And the tracks are beautifully laid into the pavement. Zurich is meter gauge, by the way. It's a large system. Here's one of the older trams with that low floor middle section. This is the Polybahn, which is their very short funicular going up to the Polytechnic, the very famous ETH university. If we go back to the map, it's right here. It's this little short, it's not much of a, you can walk it or you can take the tram. Notice how the tram has to go up and back because it's quite a steep hill. So that's the Polybahn. And here beautifully, and again, landscaping, the flowers. And this was April. So it was cool. The weather was very pleasant, but it was cool. There's a trolley bus coming through, a triple trolley bus, double articulated. And more of the different trams going in front of the station. This very flush special work in the foreground and the 4 tracks and just a plethora of different, and one of their newer cars all in wrap. Here we are. There's going to be, this car is going to, I think, come up beside the other one. Yeah, there it is. And then this is on the other side. Near that U-turn. Here's the Polybahn again. Somehow my slide, I'm sorry, got out of order here. And that's the K-Brücke. Oh, there's a few more. This is that K-Brücke where I was, where there was this pedestrian bridge here. Over here is the Opera House, right there. And right near the Opera House is a loop for an interurban, which I did not get to ride, but I got to take some pictures that goes to Esslingen. And this was during the day and then in the evening. This is the mainline train. This is a commuter train, typical double-decker type equipment. And there it is again. They call it an S-Bahn. Now I did take an all-day trip, circular trip. I have to look for it, to go up to something called the Rigi, which is about 1,600 meters, but there was a lot of snow up there. Here we are, Rigi. Here's an overall map to show you. Here's Zurich at the top of the map. Zurich, the lake, Zurich Lake, and this is at the bottom here is the Lake of Lucerne, or what they call the Vierwaldstätter See. And the Rigi is, if you can see the pointer right there, just to the left of Art and Art-Goldau. So the train goes from Zurich through a tunnel here, through the town of Zug, down by the Lake of Zug, goes to Art Goldhow, and then this is a rack railway that goes up to the top of the Rigi, and then you go down the other side to the lake, and then I went by boat to Lucerne and took the train back from Lucerne. So this is a close-up. This is actually taken from the Swiss Railways real-time map. If anybody wants it, I can send out the link. They have a map available online that shows exactly where every train is in Switzerland at any time. So this is the Rigi to Sisi. These are the trains that have gone up to the Rigi from Art Goldhow. So here, this is leaving Zurich in the morning. Just take a look at the frequency of service on the regular trains. These are the intercity trains. In 1/2 hour, between 9:01 and 9:32, this is the number of different trains they have going all over the country. And on the right-hand side are the commuter services. So here we are getting on the fast train that goes to, I believe the train I was going went to Lugano in southern Switzerland through the Gotthard. I've got on a similar train a day or two later. And there's the Rigi, as we can see it from in the snow up there. This is, it said, late April. So here we are. This is Art Goldhow. This is again from OpenStreetMap, showing the detail of the trackage going up and then down to the lake. Now what happens is this station used to have the tracks, I believe, go over here, head here. The station is now here where the parking lot is, so you have to walk. It's not that far from the junction station over to the where the rack railway. So this was, I'm not sure if this actually had tracks on it or this was only always just a pedestrian overhead bridge. And this was a train that went through. This is one of the mainline Switzerland's trains that goes sort of from the northeast to the southwest of the country. Due to clearances, they can't really have dome cars, but they have, you know, an all glass rounded end car. I think this goes from Romanshorn to Interlaken, I'm not sure, but it, and then a car carrying train came through. And here we are. This is a traverser at the there. This is the rack railway where everyone's walking to take the rack railway. Here we are. You can see the rack between the rails. Typical pretty Swiss church. And there's the Rigi Kulm, where we're going to end up right by that antenna up on top of the mountain. That is not a steering wheel. That is the accelerator on a lot of Swiss trains, they use a wheel like that, and you turn it to the right to accelerate, and I guess to the left to slow down. That's the other end. It's a double-ended car. And we can look down the track. There's a locomotive with a plow on it. There were tulips at that time of year at the station, and here we are. We're going to be going uphill in a minute. And as soon as we start uphill, snow. As we go higher, more snow. Looking out the front. We never go very fast on these rack railways. It's maybe 8-10 miles an hour at most. And you can see how steep it is. And here we are getting closer to the top. And there's a view across of the Alps. Here we are at the top. And this is a view from that real-time screen capture and then switch to the aerial view. This must have been taken in the middle of summer. As you can see, this deck by the building up here, which is the restaurant and so forth, you know, everything's clear. The train, there's a train that just had pulled in. But when I was there, these are some of our visitors coming up with us. And that's looking across to the Pilatus, which is over near Lucerne, which has the world's steepest rack railway to climb there. I did that many, many years ago. I have to think what year it was. Sometime, I think it was 1980. That's looking across to the Berner Oberland. That's the Eiger and the Munch. This is the train that will be going downhill on the other side. A lot of people were taking selfies and using selfie sticks. The view from the the top. Here we are, as you can see, the panoramic view of the Alps. And it's very close to Zurich, so this is why I think a lot of people come up here, because it's not that high. This is that deck that, you know, overhead is by the restaurant. Of course, it was closed, snow everywhere when I was there in April. Pilatus, and when it's summer and warm, you can lie out on these reclining. People were putting up, look, to take selfies, so they make little snowmen and then put up their camera self. This is looking down to the Lake of Lucerne, which will be descending. Anyway, that's Rime ice, very typical of going up into the Alps. There it is on the trees, and there are our friends again. I just thought this was a very artistic picture through this glass. And then we're going back downhill in a moment, looking down. Here we are. There's Lucerne in the distance. And we're going to start downhill. This is a station about halfway down. And we're still in snow. And now on this side, we come out of the snow and it's green. And you can see how steep it is. This is where the tracks separate. And I took a picture of I guess that's the uphill side. That's about as typical a view of Switzerland as you can get. Cows and the Alps. The Pilatus again, we're by Lucerne, and here we are almost down by the lake, coming into Fitznau, and they have a little museum, but it's behind glass. It wasn't open, with some older equipment protected from the elements. That's the F, the V is an F, so it's the Fitznau Rigibahn. And then here we are on the lake, taking a boat across. There's the Rigi in the distance now. There's the Pilatus, and we're coming into Lucerne. Lucerne does not have trams, but it does have some trolley buses. And then this is the train, I believe, that I took back to Zurich. And here we are back. No, this is still in Lucerne. This is that's probably a BLS, a Bern-Lichtenberg Simplon train. I think that's it. That's it for, yes, we're back at the beginning. That's the end of the Rigi. So let me see what else I was going to be showing today. Okay, it was Switzerland. Switzerland. Oh yes, and then I have this year my more recent trip going across the country, and this is the electric parts of the two museums near Chicago. The Fox River Museum in Elgin, Illinois. Here it is, on the south side of Elgin. This is where the barns are, and then it has a track down along the river. I did not ride it because all they had operating the day I was there were some Chicago L cars. This is what I was hoping to ride. This is an Aurora, one of their local, I can't remember the name of the railroad right now, that operated. This is not the CA&E, the interurban that went to Chicago. This is the one that was the Fox River Aurora and something or other electric. And they're restoring the car. I thought it was in operation. It's the inside of it. It just needs some work. So I spent actually 2 days at the Illinois Railroad Museum over Labor Day weekend because they have a nighttime operating session. So I was there, I think, on a Saturday and then Sunday morning. This, I believe, is the largest railroad museum in the country. It has multiple barns. They have a lot of electric and they have a lot of other stuff. So I'm limiting the show to basically cover the electric equipment that they have. They have a lot of North Shore Line, South Shore, and CA&E, you know, the three interurbans out of Chicago. It's extremely well put together, the museum. They're expanding it. They're going to build a little mini main street to replicate what a small town trolley system would have looked like. This is a Chicago car that they were running around on the loop. They have quite a number of different cars from the Chicago surface lines as well, and a lot of other things. This is an L car, which operated. Here they are, Northwestern elevated, and the other one is from, it just says Rapid Transit, so I'm not sure which line that would have been. Here's the Chicago Surface Lines car. This is the inside. This was in, yeah, as I said, Labor Day weekend this year. I'm not sure where they got the neon sign, but they have a number of really nice ones from the railroad. They have actually an operating trolley bus network. This is a former Dayton trolley bus. That's a Union Pacific turbine in the background. This is a Fort Wayne and Wabash Valley trolley inside the barn from 1906. They have a lot of cars, and some of them are hard to take pictures of because of the narrowness of the space or the lighting inside the barns. This is one of the North Shore cars that was operating that day. I actually got to move the switcher from the Charles City Western, which was a line in Iowa, and almost everybody works for our volunteers. He invited me up and he says, "You want to move the car into the barn?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I didn't take it all the way to the end because you have to be really very good and move it very slowly to get it into the last parking space. This is a Shaker Heights car inside the museum. This one was operating the next day, another former Chicago Surface Lines car, one of their PCCs. They had the L trains out, the three cars together. Here we are. Again, Surface Lines car. Unfortunately, the electroliner was not in service. It's being worked on again and being restored. The inside of it's kind of ripped apart. I thought I thought that they had already restored it before. So luckily, I did ride it as a Liberty liner back in 1976. So that's inside the tavern, the little lounge car that they had. The decorations, they're working on it. That's from one of the South Shore stations. They have a really good sign, and another one from the CA&E. There's the sign that the sunset was coming. And really nice sky. There's the car in the same car, all lit up, ready to go for the night session. Here's a trolley bus coming along. There was a lot of equipment running. Now, this was interesting because when they turned the lights on later, it became quite bright and actually better to take pictures in the barn after sunset than it was during the day. I believe that's a Detroit car. A Detroit piece. No, that's a Chicago PCC. 3 doors. That's another former Chicago car. An earlier Aurora and Elgin car, nicely restored. There it is from 1907. There's the view of all the cars in the barns. As I said, what happened is the lighting, whatever they do to turn the lighting on at night, it became much better than it was earlier in the day. There's the, this is very typical of Chicago that they had 3 doors, extra length PCC with 3 doors, 2 doors in the front, 3 doors in the back, and all sorts of combinations. Another Surface Lines car, another North Shore car. That's the one I showed, the 1374, and there's the back end of the electroliner. This is a couple of pictures of non-electric. They have these really nice old open platform observation cars, one from the Olympian, which used to go from Chicago to Seattle on the Milwaukee Road. And there it is, and that's the interior of the lounge. I love the up here where it says Milwaukee electrified, because it was in 2 long sections out west. And this is the other car, the Gold Coast, the lounge car from the Gold Coast. Here's night shots of the trolleys running at night. And here are the 3 L cars, again, on their night running inside. There was the museum was very well attended for this weekend, for this night session. The inside of the car, and quite a few passengers. This is the next morning. I went back. This is a I think it's the former Virginian E33. This one needs a lot of work. Electric. Here's 1374 was out running on Sunday in the morning, making the loop. It has nice rattan seats, and they were running CA&E cars on the next day. And then it meets the trolley. I have other pictures that I took because they had steam and all sorts of things running for the 2 days. Big extravaganza for that weekend. It's the 2 cars together. And that's it for the Illinois Railroad Museum. Then let me go to what's the next one I was going to show? Hold on, I have to find looking for Iowa here. There we go, Iowa. Okay. So I went to Dubuque, Iowa, and over here is the Fenelon Place elevator, which is one of the shortest funiculars, also claimed to be one of the steepest. Many years ago, I drove through here and saw it, and I thought I was on my way out west. I said I'd stop by and visit it again. So there it is. It runs from 8 in the morning to 10 p.m. It's not very long. It just goes up this little hill. There's the cars from below as they meet in the middle. And it's a 3-rail system. And you can, that's the view from the top, looking at back out over Dubuque. That huge building is the City Hall with the golden dome. And looking the other way, that's the railroad bridge, which on the east side dives into this little tunnel, but the tunnel is curved. It's there because, hold on, I have to go back to the map. See, it goes into this tunnel and then curves to join the rest line. There was not enough room once across the river to actually meet the rail line on the east side. I have a video of the elevator running, so I'm going to run that. Notice how it's open on the upside. There's no door or anything on the
Is it coming up or what?
Yeah, it's coming.
Puede guardarle, guardarle con su culo, guardarlo. Yo me lo doy, ya me guardo Tell me, look at the L. Look at the L. Look at the L.
there's Iowa. And then anyway, I then went to Mason City, Iowa, which has the last operating electric freight railroad, I believe, in the United States. It's a remnant of the Mason City and Clear Lake interurban, which is a passenger service. I'd have to check my books, but I think it's last passenger service operated in the late 20s or the early 30s in the Depression. But they kept the line for freight. It had always had a good freight business, and it runs right along here, this track along 19th. And there's Emory is where the shops are. This is downtown Mason City. And then I learned about Mason City before I got there that it is also, for anyone interested in architecture, one of the cities with the most prairie-style buildings, which is the Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture, almost in the entire country. There's a whole neighborhood where there's a number of architects who studied with Frank Lloyd Wright and built some really nice houses for people there. So here we are. These locomotives are about 100 years old or older, still running, still pulling tankers, and this one was at the shops. This one looks like it's out of service. I think they have 4 of them that work. We'll have the poles down. And here it is. This one's running. And there's an engine on both ends of the train, pulling and pushing. Here it is. Tankers and there it goes. And I do have a very good video of it operating now. You'll notice it looks like upper quadrant semaphore signals that still are in place. And they have a Chicago North Shore Milwaukee car that they have used, I know, for passenger excursions, but not for quite a number of years. That's what I was told when I visited the shops. They said it hasn't been out for 3 or 4 years now. Part of that was obviously because of the COVID period. So this is the interior of it. It still can be run. It can be chartered. This is something that Sandy sent from Google. Somebody actually Google street level caught the train. So, and even caught the engineer. They didn't. Yeah, let me get to the video. There's a good video of it. Hopefully. So how did that video work, Paul? Did people
Looked really good.
Okay. To follow up on some of the things that Eric showed last month, which were diesel trains, as I continued west, I was in Nebraska, and I was traveling along the Burlington Northern, former CP&Q main line coming back east, not I-80, but US 6. And I ran into late in the day, very good lighting, a really good freight train, which I have good pictures of and one really good video. So here's US 6, which goes through the town of Holridge. This is the railroad line, and then along here I ran into the train. I was able to pace it. The train was moving at a good clip, but maybe 45, 50, but at least the speed limit there, I believe, is 65 on the 2-lane highway, so it wasn't a problem to keep up with the train. So here it is, meeting another train going the other way, and here it is out on the what everybody thinks is Nebraska's flat. It isn't quite flat, it's sort of rolling country. And it was nice lighting late in the day. I happen to like this paint scheme a lot, and it, as I said, because of the lighting, these pictures came out quite well. Going by one of these giant corn plants. And in the background, that green and white, you'll see it in a minute. It's a Cargill SD, I believe that's an SD40 that is used to switch the plant. And then here's another train going in the opposite direction around Holridge. And yeah, and then they met up. It's lighting, and I do have one video to show of this. If I move this, Paul, the bar, does it stay on the screen for everybody to see it?
It does, but as long as you have it, I think either at the very top or bottom, you're okay.
Okay, and I think the video covers it, so. So that was this year in Nebraska, and I do have another set of pictures back in Adelaide, which I didn't get. I didn't know how long the show was going to take, so I left those possibly for the end, but then I have a few other videos to show if people don't mind. Interestingly enough, I don't take videos as well as Eric, who did last month. I really have to say his video are not jerky sometimes like mine, but he didn't show any pictures at the junction in Chicago at the Loop. And I just happened to take pictures there from the State Street stop in November when I was in Chicago. So I thought I'd share those. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. They're not very long. They're basically showing the different services going through the, here, if you look, the Chicago Loop, at the northwest corner of the loop, you have services that run east-west in both directions, and then you have trains that come into the loop from the north, the Ravenswood line, and the purple line, which is Evanston, which only runs in rush hour. One of them runs clockwise, one runs counterclockwise, and then they also have a line, the pink line, that comes in from Lake Street and also runs around the loop. The pink line goes around, and right now I don't remember if it goes around clockwise or counterclockwise, but you'll see it on the video. So the red line on the inner loop is the first one. Yeah, the red line is the one that comes in at the south end of the loop because it goes out to Midway Airport. The next video, the titles will tell you what they are. The next one is green line is the line that runs from Lake Street down to the elevated on the south side, also to Ashland and the other end. So that one runs east-west in both directions on this track. So that was a pink line train leaving the loop going out to Douglas, and there's one waiting for it coming this way, going around the loop clockwise. And the next one is a the purple line, which goes also clockwise around the loop, but goes north to Evanston, rush hour only. And there's one more, which is I think I got every combination possible going through that junction. So if we go back to my picture, since we still have time, I initially left this out. I went to the National Railroad Museum in Australia, is also in Adelaide. It's at the north, sort of west end of one of their commuter lines. They have everything in that museum. It's very well done. They have very good descriptions of everything. It's really hard, though, to present the whole thing. They have narrow gauge, standard, and broad gauge equipment because they have stuff from everywhere in Australia. So I selected some of the pictures that I took there to show, and I'm going to go through that now. So here's the museum. It has a loop track where they can run trains. This is the commuter service, Port Adelaide. So it's a short walk if you take a commuter train out there. I happen to have a rent-a-car. That's what greets you when you enter this little tiny steam engine. It's parked right by the car park. And one of the same locomotives that I showed earlier, that was in Sydney on the Great Train Day. They have one of the same line here at the museum, which, as I say, for people who know, it looks a lot like an Alco FA. They have what looks like a Southern Railroad steam engine in the same kind of green trim. This pulled the Overland, which was the train before they converted all the gauges so that they could run a train through from Sydney to Perth. I believe the Overland only went from Adelaide west when it was steam before it became diesel. Bluebirds are a variety of very similar to our RDCs, but they don't have a hump at the top. They were built in 1954. As you see, it's for standard gauge South Australian railways. So here's one of the cars. Come in the 6-cylinder diesel. I think very similar to RDCs here. This is an English locomotive, which looks somewhat like a PA, but it isn't. It's this one. This is from England. but it's made to look, I guess, to conform to sort of Australian practice, which looked much more like our North American designs. These were the suburban steam engines that used to operate in Adelaide. These, again, very English style steam engine. And this really is an RDC. I showed one earlier in just inside the at the Mount Baker Museum, but this one is at the National Railroad Museum. I think they have a number of them. What looks like either a 44 or 45 tonner GE from ANR, I guess, Australian National Railways. I made notes on this or not. I don't think I did, only because I'd have to go to the museum's website to look up all these different engines and who made them. This looks like something like an Alco. This was when they inaugurated direct passenger service, when they were able to convert all the lines so that they would have one standard gauge railroad east-west. Another one of their restored steam engines. Note where it was built, right here in Philadelphia. It's a Baldwin. Not sure what this is. This is a very unusual streamlined design steam engine. Oh, Silverton, there it is, Silverton steam engine, the W25. Yeah, I kept the pictures so I would know what I was taking pictures of. And notice this one's 3'6" gauge. So this is narrow gauge. Again, in Australia, they had all sorts of different. Now they did have some electric switcher. Can we see where it's BHP, Broken Hill Properties, which is there is, and it was built in England by Metropolitan Vickers in 1928. Broken Hill Properties is a mining and oil company. It's now been bought by somebody else, but it was a large Australian company. And then the Trans-Australian Railway, as it explains here, built between 1912 and 1917, quite late to, and then the extension north, which is very recent, north of Alice Springs to Darwin. That was only opened, I don't know, somewhere in the less than 20 years ago. So this is the line, this is the new line, I guess, from Tarcoola going north, because the old line used to go to Marie and then across. This would get flooded. There it is, the Central Australian Railway. Here on the map, it tells you, yeah, 1981, when they replaced it with the newer line to Alice Springs, and then they extended it north. Darwin, let's see, Darwin on this one says, it's hard to see because I have a bar in the way. Down here. Tarcoola Alice Springs standard in 1980, and then they filled this gap from Alice Springs to Buderim fairly recently. So these are some of their South Australian Railway passenger equipment. One of their coach compartments. And that says gents toilet. Another one of the Bluebirds. And it's a wine train. So I guess this one is either used now or was used in some sort of tourist service. Now the railroad, because of the different gauges, actually has to accommodate the narrow, the standard, and the broad gauge systems. I've never seen that before anywhere where you have that many different rails. They have a very good collection of travel posters for going by camel. And there's on the Trans-Australian Railway, note the locomotive. It's the type that I showed in the yard in Melbourne, and they have one of them here at the museum. A little velocipede. Menus from the inauguration of the new service to Alice Springs in 1975. The Gone. Beautiful classic dining car equipment. The view in the car was not open. And here's a model of that E8 type locomotive. Well, it's actually manufactured. The model is actually manufactured here in the U.S. by Lifelink. And here's one of their, I guess it's the second in the series, is in the museum. It was number 35, I believe, that I showed the picture of in the yard in Melbourne. This is one of their older dining cars. This is the national crest of Australia, which we've seen elsewhere with the kangaroo and the emu. I honestly don't understand how these work. This is what's called a Garrett. It's an unusual steam engine. It's quite common in South Africa as well. And then a kitchen aboard I think this was oh, here's a sleeping compartment, the fold down bed. That's like a baggage car. There we go. Comforts of home. Western Australia, especially in the very barren outback between Adelaide and as you go towards Kalgoorlie, the railroad was one of the only supplies to people out there. So they had these trains that actually brought like a store on wheels to people who lived out there in the middle of nowhere, and a train that it was actually a butcher who would bring your meat to you. Another, looks like an 060 steam engine, an inspection car. I said they have a collection of so many different things in this museum, and it's very large. This is Port Adelaide. This is right near where the museum is, the picture at the top, and it says it's no longer in use. So that was just showing you where the museum is now. Oh, and then outside they have a lot of passenger equipment of different sorts, not open to the public. Dynamometer car, another engine that looks like a T1 from the South Australian Railways. Lexington Lewis, they named it. Sort of a rail car, self-propelled rail car. Another a 280 steam engine, and little bits of freight equipment, vacuum oil company, and we're leaving the museum back at the end. Oh, and then I ran into, I can't remember where exactly this happened when I was driving around. I ran into a place where they were storing old double-decker buses. I know there's a few people who don't mind buses in the Railroad Club. The one on the left looks like a London type bus. I'm not sure. It was obviously used here in Australia, and somebody has a collection of these. And that was it. That was the museum in Adelaide. So I guess we're doing pretty well for time. I planned this to be about 2 hours. So yeah, it's almost 9:30. Thank you very much for your time. And Paul, do you want to open up the mic for chat?
Yeah, you bet. Let me take care of that right now.
And I will stop sharing. There we go. Yeah, I was afraid this show would actually go on longer. That's why I had left the museum, the Adelaide Museum, out. But
So if anyone on the Zoom would like to unmute themselves and
I see there's a lot of comments in the chat, so I don't know if they're questions or.
Not any questions recently, but we are getting a lot of very positive feedback on the presentation now. And as I mentioned, if anyone wants to unmute and ask questions of Andrew or make any comments, please go ahead.
See a lot of members in that.
Yep, you should be able to unmute now if you'd like.
Is everybody muted still?
A few folks have unmuted, but no questions or comments yet.
Okay.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Bill, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Kristen. Good to see you. I think I speak for everyone. It was a wonderful tour with an immense variety. I was taken back to Iowa when all those tank cars were going by. We had kind of a fan trip out there, and then the Fenelon elevator. And anyway, it was in Switzerland. Boy, how my heart goes back there. But all together, it was a delightful trip around the world, and thank you so very much.
You're welcome. I have at least a few more shows of digital left in me, and then if I get a scanner, I have a lot of slides to go through at some point in my life.
I might just mention, my name's Angus from Vancouver, and we lived in Australia for 5 years when I was aged 11 through 16 from Canada. And we lived in Melbourne and Geelong nearby. So I missed some of the earlier Melbourne pictures, but I really enjoyed the rest of the Australian and Switzerland pictures. My father worked for Ford Motor Company, and he received an invitation, and I still have the original tickets, invitations, and everything else to ride on the first Southern Aurora that went from Sydney to Melbourne. So we have the original roulette ticket and all sorts of things, pictures. It was a big deal when they unveiled the train in 1962, and there's even a hit parade song from 1962 called Southern Aurora. Instrumental tune that they had when they started the train. So you can find that on YouTube if you poke around. So
it was that late. It was 1962. That's kind of late to be introducing passenger service.
Yeah, and but that avoided the transfer of broad gauge to standard gauge to Albury.
Right. Oh, so they only opened the Albury to Melbourne line in '62, I guess, to have the three tracks.
Right. And we did cross Australia by train. We flew to Perth in April, Easter of 1962. And then we came back by 4 trains, which was West Australian Government Railways with wood carriages and open platforms going through the desert to Kalgoorlie, where we changed to a Commonwealth Railways standard gauge train, across to Port Pirie to a 3-foot-6 gauge train to Adelaide, and then a broad gauge train, the overnight train to Melbourne. As a family of 5, we did the whole trip. So it was a great time to visit there.
Yeah, I don't know if the Indian Pacific now, which runs through, do they bring it down from Port Pirie into Adelaide? Because that's sort of a dead end. And then reverse it and then take it back to continue it west.
And then I visited back in Adelaide in 1972, and they had a suburban train that ran for 2 stations as a shuttle connection, but this was again 3-foot-6 gauge. It was probably 2 miles long with 2 stations, called the Semaphore Line. So anyway, thank you I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you. see some chats here. Let's see.
And Andrew, as you know,
Oh, hi, John. Oh,
hello, I'm watching from Melbourne, Australia. So obviously, a lot of this is great. Well, all of it's of great interest to me. Thank you very much for a good show.
Yeah, well, you know more about actually the details of some of the things that I mentioned, because especially the Melbourne system. I mean, you and I went out and did and you took me to Bendigo, so.
There is a lot of detail. It's the same everywhere in railroads, but certainly Australia is a big mishmash because of the multiple gauges that you mentioned, and they all seem to come together in South Australia or Adelaide or nearby, and that's you illustrated that in your tour of that museum, and that's why it's so diverse. Now things are more or less straightened out. We do have a standard gauge national freight network that joins all the capital cities, because we started off as 6 or 7 colonies and everybody did their own thing, and now we're a little bit more united, although the pandemic has certainly brought out some state differences. It's shown that the states can control their borders still, irrespective of what the federal government might want to say. So yeah, life's complicated, but we live a simple life down here compared with those poor people up north.
When you say up north, you mean up north in the Northern Territory or Queensland?
Oh, I mean up north in the area of Ukraine.
Oh, you're talking about us.
Poor things.
Say hello to Maria for me.
We're still getting a lot of great comments and accolades in the chat. So lots of very nice comments coming in. Again, if anyone wants to unmute or ask questions or make any comments, please feel free. Last call, if anyone wants to unmute and make a comment or ask any questions. Still getting good feedback in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I recognize quite a number of the names who are, the club members who are here. Bob's not on tonight. That's right, because that's why you're running it. Has the club decided on when we're going to have in-person meetings again?
No, not yet. There was some discussion of resuming those, but the Zooms remain actually more popular than the in-person meetings. So we're going to continue those on a monthly basis.
Well, I mean, you can't have people from Australia in in-person meetings, so that's really good.
Exactly. And I will say we peaked out in this Zoom at close to 115 participants. So we had a very good turnout for this presentation.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. And if anybody else, we can call it a night.
All right. Last call. Any closing comments or questions? Yeah, so thank you. Kristen reminds me there will be next month in April, the meeting information will be posted on the ERA website at erausa.org. And we appreciate everyone's indulgence while we premiered the new registration process. So hopefully everyone saw that the Zoom meeting went smoother than it normally does. And we're going to continue to try to refine the process. If anyone has any questions or concerns, they can feel free to contact us through the ERA website. But again, Andrew, I just wanted to say on behalf of the Electric Railroaders Association, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I think the feedback reflects our sentiment that it was a great show. So thank you again for all the time you put into putting it together. And we'll see everyone again next month. So take care, everyone.
All right, bye.
Okay.